Everybody saw it, but this is a Kenmore Air float plane that has been decorated to be an orca with all the markings of an orca. And there are accompanying educational information, all kinds of pamphlets and stuff for every passenger, along with how to tie your seatbelt, is how to take care of our local neighborhood southern resident and transient orcas. So it's a great effort, and Anna Gullikson, who was here a minute ago, probably had to go out and take care of her dog. Unfortunately, by the health department rules, her puppy dog can't come in. But anyway, I think she'll be back at that table in the back row. So say hi to Anna for us and thank her for the orca plane. Now, I mentioned that Susan isn't here and can't be here, and that's really sad, and she's here in spirit, in everything that we see is a part of what she made happen. But she also sent me with some comments here. And so I'd like to read this, which is sort of a history, and certainly her perspective and her role in the Lolita campaign over the years. Why we keep doing this. Number one, Tokite Lolita. Enough said. Two, you, all the people inspired by her story, spirit, and strength, who have been moved to spread word of her story, volunteer, support, and create beautiful music, videos, movies, and art. Thank you. Three, her family, the southern resident community of orcas. To understand Lolita's story and why she should come home, you have to know about her family. And hundreds of thousands of people have learned about the southern residents because of Lolita and not from visiting the Miami Seaquarium. She can continue raising awareness and inspiring action to help her family by coming home, and can further research into their social ties and heal a sad chapter in the lives of the southern residents and in the history of our island. I first, this is Susan, learned about Lolita in 1995 when Wally Funk, who was the editor, publisher, photographer of the Coupeville and Oak Harbor newspapers back in the 60s and 70s, did a slide presentation about the Penn Cove orca captures for a Beach Watchers program while I was Beach Watcher program coordinator. He told me some people were going to attend to talk about a whale. And after Wally's slideshow of the captures, which already had pretty much captivated me, moi, stood up and introduced himself to our group, saying there is one whale alive out of all those captured. This was in '95. Living alone in a small tank in Miami. He told us Lolita's story and of the campaign just begun with Governor Lowry, Ralph Monroe, and Ken Balcom, who launched the campaign March 9, 1995 in a press conference in Seattle. The minute I heard about Lolita, I knew I wanted to help get her home. I talked to Howard after the meeting to see how I might help, and before long was helping spread Lolita's story in any way I could, and soon was invited to be on the board of what was then called the Tokite Foundation. The deal was sealed with a Keiko Barbie doll designed by Bonnie Gretz for Mattel, but that's another story. We had our first Whidbey event in the summer of 1997, a cruise with Nichols Brothers providing the boat. Secretary of State Ralph Monroe on board, cruising up to the capture site at Penn Cove, where we had lunch on the beach of the Captain Whidbey Inn. Not long after that, Howard left for Miami to continue our efforts there for 2 years. August 1998, we held our first commemoration event on the 28th anniversary of the 1970 Penn Cove orca capture, in which Toki was taken from her family. Captain John Stone gave sails aboard his Cuddy Sark, and that's a little catch, and has for most years since. We had a program including political leaders, diver John Crow, who recently passed away, with an emotional return to the Cove, his first return since he participated in the captures in 1970. and Carly Gilbert from Langley Middle School singing a Lolita song. The next month, some of us traveled to Newport to watch Keiko leave the Oregon Coast Aquarium for his new sea pen in Iceland. We met up with John Crow in his hometown to celebrate Keiko's release back to the ocean, and I remember watching TV the next day as Keiko was lowered into his sea pen, feeling Iceland's ocean water for the first time in decades, and crying as I watched him so exuberantly re-enter his life in the ocean once again. There have been many times in these past 2 decades when we lost hope, and many times we felt we were closer to Toki coming home. Since the release of Blackfish, there has been such a sea change of public opinion, a true paradigm shift, and we feel closer than ever to helping Toki retire from 45 years of indentured service as an entertainer kidnapped from her family to perform her circus act for the Miami Seaquarium. We live for the day when this commemoration of a sad day in the lives of Lolita and her family and in the history of our island becomes a celebration of the day that Lolita Tokite is finally returned to her home waters to rejoin her family in the Salish Sea. I think Toki somehow knows that there is still hope, and that is what has kept her alive so much longer than all the other captured southern residents. I think she somehow can feel the spirit, determination, and efforts so many are putting into breaking her out of that sea prison to bring her back home to the Salish Sea and her family. I hope she can feel that we are getting closer and that we can all gather together one day soon to see her first exuberant splash back into the sea she was stolen from 45 years ago. That's so now, I'd like to bring up Dave.